Chris is gonna be lip syncing it.
She's recording. I'm just gonna.
I love you know the choreography to this too.
He's been planning this.
Please tell me this is videotape. He's going.
That was a great addition.
I think that was in sync, but you know, I don't think it was good enough.
Welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Talk here at Great Stories. We got on my right flank here, to your left, Ken Lee from the CrankFile,
aka Blue Shark.
Blue Shark. All right. Oh, you're like, why are they laughing? Anyway.
Blooper reel.
Blooper reel. On the right, we got Tyler Hamel. And we're here to talk about some really cool stuff, including Iron Fist.
Oh, right, Iron Fist.
Fist Season 2.
I knew that.
Dos. Now, we've all seen this, right?
I've seen one episode.
That's my line.
Yeah, exactly.
One episode. Hi, I'm Tyler.
I'm Ken, and I've seen the whole season.
I'm Tyler Driscoll.
Tyler Driscoll. So, yeah. All right, so maybe I should just...
Yeah. Well, no, we'll start with him since he saw the first episode.
You saw the first episode.
What do you remember from the first episode?
I remember that the action sequences were way more entertaining than they were in the first season. I felt like the first season went pretty hard with like the special effects, kind of more like the Luke Cagey style of fighting.
Yep.
And this felt more like that Daredevil, like, you know, real fast-paced martial arts kind of style.
Real, like, punch an engine out of a truck kind of.
Yeah, the guy turns around and just
oh, I'm like, did he just punch the engine out of that truck?
You felt like, you know, you felt it. You felt the force. And you almost you wanted to believe that, like, he could have done that. You know, if he just swung hard enough.
So much confidence.
Yeah.
Just like that was his plan all along. Yeah.
What can Kunlun do for you?
Yeah, never ship with them. They're. I liked Colleen. I thought she had very strong presence in that first episode.
Yes.
Colleen's character development throughout this whole like season, pretty much rivaled that of all the other characters in their own arcs, because you get to see her really coming out of her shell.
That's awesome.
In the first season, she is pretty much this core, like, who she is who she is. That's what you get through the entire series. She's this strong woman, very, you know, not entirely sure of herself, but she thinks that she's on the right path, and she's following that, and she's trying to help other people on it. She starts off this season thinking that she has hung that all up, and she fights with that for the rest of the season.
Nice.
Until she finally is given the ability to completely change her future from what she thought it was going to be, and you see that character development come.
See, I'm so happy to hear that, because she was one of the shining spots in season 1.
Yep.
Like one of the things that I actually enjoyed. So just seeing that she was going to have like a bigger, you could tell.
She gets a major role.
Yeah, you can tell with, like, you know, the thing with her family crest being on that box, like it's setting up very much like the mystery behind her heritage.
Yep.
Like that was going to play big, and like that's probably drew me in more than like any of the Iron Fist backstory.
I would definitely say
that
get
I read
your
was
way
familiar.
to that last episode.
Absolutely.
Because it concludes in such a satisfying way, and it really just takes everything from the first episode and wraps it all up perfectly in the last one, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. There's, the strength of the Marvel shows has been, even when I think you've had kind of a mediocre start, you actually start seeing the strong supporting cast really rise up.
Yeah.
And kind of elevate the story.
Yeah.
You know, and because the story's not called, we're talking Iron Fist. We're not talking, this is not a Colleen Wing vehicle, but it feels like Colleen Wing could easily be the vehicle. You know, and that's a great thing, that you can basically have these supporting characters that really rise to that level, and they're right there on the level with the main character. and obviously, I mean, she's not just a love interest. She's in many ways his better.
Yeah.
You know, like, so.
Badass.
Yeah, she is. She is. And definitely she gets her due. And I think they're really setting Colleen Wing up for, for future, the future setup for maybe like a Heroes for Hire type
nice.
of storyline that might happen, So, she would be a really
I don't want to
to
ruin any of it for you because the twist that they took on this, I'm like, I was happy. I was surprised. The very ending of the last episode is where I got most of my jolly, because they set up Colleen to have like a very strong future, but not only that, now Danny Rand has broken out of this like, I need to protect the city, and he's gone into like really like, all right, what is the history behind the Iron Fist? Like, what did I do all this for? And the best part is that Ward's development also brings him towards that direction.
So let's kind of like summarize for everybody, not surmise. Summarize for everyone, kind of like what is the gist of season 2? Like, what is really happening here with the characters? What's the trajectory?
So it starts off, Danny has, after working with Matt Murdock during the Defenders series, promised Matt that he will protect his city. And he does that to the best of his ability, but the problem is that in doing all this, he slowly discovers that he doesn't have as much control of the Iron Fist as he thought, and that he no longer has an understanding of why he needs to have this. When he was in Kunlun, it was all about gaining the Iron Fist. Once he had the Iron Fist, it was all about defending Kunlun. Now that Kunlun is gone, what is the purpose of having the Iron Fist? And his substitute is that, well, I need to protect the city. But that's not the truth of it, and he has to come to terms with that. In the midst of all of this, a triad war is breaking out in Chinatown.
Yes.
And again, Colleen doesn't want to get into that life anymore. She wants to stay out of that. That's Danny's thing. She can't stop him from getting involved with that, but she's going to stay out of it. And of course, that pull is there. She can't help herself. She's too strong of a person, and she can't help getting involved when innocent people are at stake. And so she gets involved with one of the triads to try and coerce them towards finding a political way out of this war. And things don't go exactly as planned. They try, but it doesn't succeed.
Right.
And the reason behind that has a lot to do with Joy Meacham and with help me out here. What's his name? Davos.
Davos, yes.
His brother from Kunlun.
Yes. Who he won the Iron Fist from.
Yeah.
Is this the main antagonist for the season?
So Davos becomes the main antagonist for this season, and Joy is very much wrapped up with Davos for a large part of it. Also introduces a third character that is, I want to say, she's very flip-floppy. It's Mary Walker, who is
played by Alice Eve.
Yeah, and she does an excellent job. Absolutely brilliant. Captivating character throughout the entire series, despite the fact, despite the fact that one half of her character is very droll, very serious, meek. Yes, and
multiple personality disorder character, and you discover, I think she's a character from the comic books.
Yeah.
Typhoid Mary.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Well, you said multiple personality disorders. That's when I picked that up.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, neat.
That's right.
So she gets involved.
And I didn't know that before watching the show. It was like, as we're going, I'm like, that's Typhoid Mary. I'm like, that's got to be that character, and she does an excellent job in the show.
I didn't catch it the first time that Danny interacts with her, because it just seemed like, just another character to show how Danny's interacting with New Yorkers. But then she shows up for a second time, and it's like, oh, okay. Now you're starting to make a little bit of
So she has, like, completely different interaction when you see her, because she's multiple different people.
They play it very well.
Cool.
She is under the employ of Joy.
Yeah.
She's working for Joy.
To get information on Danny and on Ward.
So Joy's character has gone through a metamorphosis here because she was always looked at as being, of the siblings, Joy and Ward. You know, Joy was always kind of like she was the kind of like the good, the shining light in the whole brother sister relationship thing, where Ward was kind of like the darkness, right? You know, and she was the one trying to basically get him to embrace Danny. You know, when Danny's reintroduced, and she's, you know, being Danny's friend, right? And now in this season, things have completely flipped.
I mean, Ward still deeply struggles with his, you know, he has his addictions. He's still trying to, he wants to patch things up with his sister, and everything doesn't seem to go his way, and he always goes back to the drink to try and solve his issues and to deal with it. But the relationship he builds with Danny is absolutely beautiful. To actually hear Ward call Danny his brother several times throughout the series, it was beautiful, because you really see that he wants to become something better, that the way that he was living his life was a complete sham, and it wasn't really him, and now he has an opportunity to discover who he actually is after having lived in his father's shadow for so long. And that's the beauty of it. You really get that redemption at the end of the series.
Awesome.
Where Ward comes out and like, okay, this is the real Ward.
But you can't help but feel like it's Joy and Ward kind of riding a seesaw together.
Yeah.
Like,
you know?
one's up, one's down,
Exactly. Like, they both can't go up, you know? And, you know, and Joy's descent is very stark.
Yeah.
Very stark in this series. So, and she's very angry, and she's, you know, she's playing the role of the bitter, the one who was wronged, you know, kept in the dark about her, you know, her father being alive, you know, from season 1. Angry at Danny for being part of that knowledge and not sharing that knowledge with her, and so it's the trajectory of these characters is very well thought out. It's created a lot of great drama, and actually I think this season was a much stronger season than the first season.
In every manner.
Yep.
I thought season 1 was not great, if I'm being totally honest.
I thought season 1 was a solid Netflix show, but you know, when you compare it to some of the other, you know, the Marvel related shows, it's probably the weaker.
But this season redeems it entirely.
Absolutely.
It's much grittier, a lot gorier. There's a lot of blood in this one, and there's so much going on, just compact in this tiny little was that 9 episodes?
Oh yeah, that's right. There only 10 episodes.
I think a 10 episode season.
Episodes.
Yep.
A whole lot of story going on.
Yep.
And it's interwoven so nicely through the episodes that you're not lost on anything.
Good.
Yep. It holds you. It's really good.
It's definitely a good show. You should check it out. You know, if you were kind of soured on Iron Fist season 1, you know, don't hesitate. You know, some of these shows, they're all interlinked. You know, so it's good to actually watch them all, but. You know, don't feel like you're going to waste your time watching season 2, because it really was a step up from season 1. They did a good job with it.
I do want to caution, you might, just for the sake of some of the character growth, you might want to take a look at Luke Cage season 2 before you watch this, because we get a post Luke Cage season 2 Misty Knight.
Yes.
Throughout the second half of this season.
So I haven't seen Luke Cage season 2 yet. I'm assuming she has her machine gun arm yet?
Not quite. She gets... Watch Luke Cage season 2, because she starts that season without an arm.
Yep.
Completely armless.
Yep.
And if you go right into season 2 of Iron Fist, she comes in halfway through the season with her Rand arm.
Her bionic arm.
Her bionic arm. Yep. But of course she ends the second season with a need for an upgrade, so we'll see what comes with that. So I was very happy with that. And who is it?
So it does sound like they're bringing in Heroes for Hire. So they'll have.
I think they could.
Luke, Misty, Danny, and Colleen. Yeah, that'd be great, because instead of doing like just the Heroes for Hire with just Luke and Danny, they'll do 4 of them. That'd be a great show. I'd watch that.
Yep. Absolutely.
It almost seems to me like they might not even include, I think it would probably just be Colleen and Misty. Because at the very last episode, Danny goes off and Colleen's left taking care of New York, and Misty's there with her, and Misty makes a comment about maybe sticking around and helping out
Oh.
I wouldn't be surprised if they went for an all-female cast, maybe bring in Black Cat, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
They could bring Jessica Jones.
There's
That seems
such
like
great-
could be.
Or
There's
Jessica
such great
Jones,
characters.
absolutely. So that's a great possibility.
Yeah.
I will say this: the one thing that kind of had me head scratching a bit was the very, very end of the last episode, where they kind of
that last really corny. I wouldn't try that again. Like
yeah, exactly.
was-
Like
I don't want to spoil it for you because it's way too. It's so boss, and I don't want to spoil it for you either.
Yeah.
You gotta watch. I ain't
Yeah.
gonna tell you this part, but it was so corny. I was like, "That's how you're gonna end it." It was so awesome. You're gonna end it like
right,
that.
it was
Come
an
on.
awesome series right up until the very last couple
And it's
frames,
just,
and you're
it's
just
just
like,
too corny. It's
like,
not even bad. It's
This is
just
too
like,
good, guys. We gotta.
Yeah, you're gonna dumb it down just a little bit. Let's.
Script Advisor was a little bit, I don't know. He might have been hitting the bottle that day. I'm not sure. So.
You can almost see it in Danny's face, like he can't believe he just said that. Like he was disappointed.
He
in
looks
himself.
right in the camera. He's like,
Yeah, he turns his back on it. He's like, he makes the line into the camera and then like turns around and then it goes black and it's just like, yeah, you know why you turned around.
he's hanging his head.
Disappointed in yourself for that one.
So, with that, I think you saw a trailer for a certain.
Oh, did I see that?
Oh, we should have watched it before we filmed.
should have.
Well, it's okay. So we got a trailer from New York Comic Con. It's for the season 3 of Daredevil.
Yep.
And we got a couple looks at a few things. We got a look at looks like a couple different storylines. It looks like we're gonna do the Wilson Fisk as mayor, another Wilson Fisk as mayor of New York
Yeah.
story.
Really?
Or
I love that in the comic books.
Yeah.
That works. I
um,
like it.
and obviously the frame up's gonna be we're gonna frame up Daredevil.
Right.
It looks like we might get a bit of the. It was the what storyline was it? It was not the redemption storyline. It was one of Frank Miller's runs. It's the one where like Daredevil basically wakes up and he has no recollection of who he is.
It's not the Fall from Grace storyline, is it?
It's the one before Fall from Grace.
Oh.
Not the. It's the one with what's her face. Karen becomes a heroin addict during it at some point. She basically gives up Daredevil's secret identity to the Kingpin for a fix.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's dark.
Yeah. That's,
Wow, that's really. Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna do all of
Come
that.
on, Karen.
But it looks like they're gonna go
What are you
down with
doing?
some of that storyline. But also at the very end of the trailer, we find a second Daredevil that's been looks like Kingpin's using him to frame up the Daredevil. Just dresses some dude up in the
Okay.
red outfit and running around. So second
That's-
Daredevil.
Kind of the way that Deadpool and Gambit were running around as Daredevil and Spider-Man.
The movie, the show. I don't know where.
It's a comic,
Are
it's a
we in another?
Yeah,
do
yeah.
we-
I wonder if this is a way they're going to introduce. I probably shouldn't do this conjecture thing because maybe I'm like accidentally
please,
dropping
go
a
for it.
spoiler.
Yeah.
But like, if there's another Daredevil running around, wouldn't it be kind of cool if it was really Bullseye underneath that?
Well, okay, so that
Yeah.
was it was rumored and I think recently confirmed that Bullseye would be the villain, at least a villain in the
Yep.
season.
Okay.
And so far he hasn't been shown in the trailer, so it could very well be that he's the
They
second
have been
Daredevil.
doing a very good job with not revealing too much in the trailers. Like there have been a
I agree,
couple of
like-
surprise drops.
That's great.
and
When they
pretty
did
much-
Elektra, I thought that was
Yeah.
fantastic the way he used her in the trailers.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think they've been doing an excellent job not revealing too much. It's just what I learned.
So that debuts. What's the date that is like October 19th or something like that is when it comes
Put me
out.
on the spot.
Soon.
But there's a good chance we might actually have some material to talk about for the next pop culture vid
Speaking of which,
if we can binge watch and get Netflix to pay us to binge watch.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Maybe we can quit our jobs.
Just call.
Just kidding.
What about Stranger Things? Have we heard of that? Getting a third
I
season?
know Stranger Things got delayed. I'm not sure when.
Well, if it's not going to be on Halloween, I ain't gonna watch it
Next year?
Yeah.
No, they got. I mean, they got to do it before those kids like hit puberty, right? Because then it's just like
Most of them are well on their way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
that's why they got to get it in now.
that's right.
They got a rescript
So-
now. It's like 15 years later.
This is gonna be like it, right? They're all adults.
Yeah.
Speaking of Netflix, did you guys watch Disenchanted?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I didn't really like it.
No?
Okay, I'm like a huge
I'll let you make the pun. You were rather
disenchanted by
disenchanted.
it. It's too easy.
Come on.
Even by Chris.
That's redundant. Well, all right. So it's basically Simpsons back in time, right?
I mean, I would say it's more
And in
more
another
like
dimension.
it's more like Futurama. I
Yeah,
think it's more the
they're
vein of
going for more
Futurama.
of a Futurama.
Okay, Futurama. Yeah, maybe Futurama.
It's like
Okay.
Futurama if they did like Game of Thrones. I think that's what they're trying to
Okay.
go with, like more of a more of a
Yeah.
sorcerers and sorcery kind of feel to it. And it had. I mean, I'm a big Matt Groening fan. I love
Yep.
I've watched it basically everything he's produced. I'm not sure what this show really was trying to do because even it was it came out all at once at Netflix.
Yeah.
Yep.
And although it had elements of long form arc where there was a longer story that kind of ran throughout the
Yeah.
season, they still very much just were like episodics where it basically contained stories one by one.
Yep.
They hinted at certain mysteries and
Yeah.
hinted at things about like Bean's lineage, Elfo's lineage, that didn't get sussed out by the end of the season. But it
Yeah.
seems like they're trying to do this long form storytelling, but not really doing it that well. Instead, just really working on like the throwaway gags, right? It's like your one liners, your punchlines, sight gags, your terrible puns.
Yeah, So my likeness of characters, just from the main three, like Elfo is like my lord and savior, and then you have like Bean like way down here like in the coal mines, and then Lucy can like.
That's so
stand
funny. I
out.
think Lucy was my favorite character.
I didn't like Lucy at all. I found the humor so dry and just out of place.
I felt like Elfo was like my worst, my least favorite
I loved
character.
Elfo. Like Elfo was the only one that could make me laugh, and then Bean was just like, Bean was Bean.
I think Elfo was funny because the self-referencing stuff was really funny. Like when he's like, "Oh, Elfo, it's kind of on the nose, isn't it?" It's like, is he
I'm
really an
drowning. Oh, hi, I'm Elfo.
So I mean that it might just be my kind of humor. I don't know. I found Lucy's humor a little bit too brash to be actually like humorous. But maybe that's just me.
It was this type of humor. Yeah.
I mean, then again, Cardinal Sin. I don't really care for The Simpsons either.
Yeah.
Like
I'm not a
Futurama
big
is an
fan.
absolute gem, and I love Futurama, and I've rewatched all the seasons of Futurama like 7 or 8 times. It's one of my like 3 pastime shows, but
I love Futurama as well. Simpsons, I would say, and we could do. I mean, I could do a whole episode on The Simpsons, but up until about season 8, it was probably I think the best show that was out on television. If you watch up to like around like season 6, 7. These are like the golden age of The Simpsons. Between seasons, I'd say about 2 to 7, there's this 5-year span where The Simpsons was by far the most intelligent, funny show on television. And then it became super popular, and then...
it just died.
Yeah, since season 8, it's been gone, what, we're in season like 27 now? It's basically been going for like...
I think is it not the longest running TV show?
I believe it is. But this has been going on for about 20 years, just like a corpse of itself. Like a lot of fans refer to it as Zombie Simpsons because like it's basically the corpse of the Simpsons just still shambling along.
What more can you do with it to make it still lively and inventive?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but anyways,
but
Disenchanted did have some good twists.
Yeah.
And I did like that they were trying to do like world building.
Yeah.
And actually try to create like a cohesive universe that these characters can live in.
Yeah.
And it had its funny moments, but like I don't remember anything that really made me like gut bust out loud.
I remember gut busting, but I was also a few sheets to the wind when that happened. So
He was hammered.
So I was encouraged to laugh a little bit more.
And
Did anyone like the king?
No.
I thought he was funny.
He was funny. I did. I liked him.
I like him.
I liked him. I love Joe DiMaggio, the guy that does, he's obviously the voice of Bender, right?
Yeah,
He's like one of the greatest voice actors of our generation. He's fantastic, and anything he voices is hysterical to me.
I don't know. I felt it was the same kind of like brash humor that like Lucy had.
Yeah.
Like give me a show that's just like Lucy and the King maybe.
It wasn't. I mean, the humor wasn't subtle, right?
Yeah,
It
it was like we're trying to be funny.
Yeah, it wasn't like clever. Like Futurama had a lot of clever jokes.
Yeah. And I guess maybe Alpha was kind of like blatant ignorance to himself. Kind of made that obvious, like we're making a joke, a little bit more funny to me. But
you know who I loved in that show though? It was the prince that got turned into a pig.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he cracked me up like was on a consistent basis. Sad. But it was just okay for me. I mean,
it was decent.
Yeah.
It was decent.
Yeah, if they came out with another season, I'd watch it. Okay. And maybe
pass the time.
Maybe the second season will be better.
All right, do you have a favorite episode out of the season?
Probably the episode where Elfo, I think it was Elfo, got captured by like Hansel and Gretel.
That was my favorite too. When Bean has to be the executioner.
Especially when, she has to be, and she just kind of like, and just kills them both. Yeah, you got your first kill.
Bean, look at me. No, just look at the bodies. You did that.
Oh, it was good. It was excellent. I quite that one I enjoyed.
Just overall, yeah, it was just like it wasn't enough humor to keep it consistently funny. There wasn't enough character and story building to make it real, in-depth, intriguing in that sense. It just seemed like it's trying to be a lot of things, and it did a few things okay, but nothing really well.
Yeah. Kind of falls flat.
So if they get a second season, hopefully they'll suss out some of those wrinkles. And
I think they could. I mean, if you look at Futurama, the first season of Futurama was probably the weakest season of them all.
It was okay.
Yeah.
Not amazing. Second season was better, and then it just got better and better.
Yeah.
And then it got beautiful.
So I'm willing to give Disenchanted a little bit of the long leash.
Okay.
Especially if you give me a couple of Futurama like Easter eggs in there. Have like Bender appear coming through like the time portal once in the background, and then just kind of back into it like that. That'll be enough for me. Yes, okay, I'll finish watching this series.
So it's going to be a tough transition here. We go from the jocular into into the horror of Halloween. So figured we'd take a little bit of time, just like we did with the comic shop talk, where we kind of talked about some horror-themed or, Halloween-themed comics.
Scary stuff.
And we'd like to talk a little bit about our favorite Halloween movies to watch. And what are your?
Which is not Halloween. It's not one of mine. Don't watch
Halloween.
Halloween.
But it might be one of mine. So.
You don't watch horror movies for Halloween?
I do. No, I don't watch Halloween on Halloween.
The movie Halloween.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's okay. You don't have to.
I'm not a hacker and a slasher. My kind of horror movies is much more like the.
Oh my god! If you say aliens again, I'm coming right over this table.
No, actually.
That's a love story for him.
I do love myself a good found flick, which is the Shaky Cam.
Yes.
From when I was young. I've never really been into horror. But I do like movies that are more about the mystery of what is going on. It's not even necessarily it's just that it's scary, but it's trying to discover what's happening.
Okay.
So I gotta go with my top 3 favorites. First of all, when I was younger, Quarantine, I thought was awesome.
Great movie.
Found flick.
Yep.
That just revolves around
found footage.
Found footage, yes. Found footage film.
First person.
Is that the one in the apartment building?
Yes.
With Deb from Dexter?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good
It
movie.
was so
Great
good.
movie.
Yeah. And it was so
Great
well
movie.
executed. I must have watched that movie at least 100 times in my life.
Yeah.
When I first watched, and what was really intriguing is the way that they did
The setup into it. You had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, and it slowly evolved. So that's the type of movie that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not much I'm not much of I don't care for Amityville. The Shining was a great psychological piece, but that's the way I see it. I don't see it so much as a horror. But then I have other films that are more horror. I really love the Insidious series, and they're getting. I think they already released the part 4. But when I watched that film, it was really interesting. the way that the whole film was crafted. And then they came up with the second film, and the second film kind of takes place before, during, and after the first film. And the way that they did it, and the way that they, you know, they took all these elements that were kind of like dead ends in the first movie, and they filled in what had happened there.
No, just hold on before we keep going. I feel like I watched the Insidious movie. Which one was this?
It was the one about the young boy who has an innate ability to astral project, and when he does so, he goes into a spiritual realm where the dead reside before moving on. But some spirits don't want to move on. They're still attached. They still want life.
And who's the woman that the medium person?
It was
what's her name?
Oh, the old lady. Yeah.
I can't remember her name, but she's very recognizable.
I can't remember the actress's name.
Wasn't she like the grandma in Happy Gilmore?
No, she doesn't.
I think physically
she looks very
like
very
her.
similar. Very similar.
Yeah.
But so he this demon that wants his body has trapped his spirit body in this realm because the longer your spirit body is away from your physical body, the more diminished the link becomes. And if it breaks, then that demon could take over its body. And so it spawned this whole series about how the afterlife works, what demons actually are, which are just basically souls that could never move on and slowly diminished into these evil states. And they play around with these realms and the way that the afterlife and can affect the real life and these dark spirits and how they come into being, and it's absolutely awesome. But the way that the further, which is what the spiritual world is called, the way that it is outside of time and space, you actually get to see, like in the first movie, you get a couple of those moments that are like throwaway, like jump horror moments, like there's a knock at a door. What was that from? Then the door slams. Oh my gosh, didn't expect that. But there's nothing that really comes of that door slamming. It's just a door slam. It's ghostly activity to scare you. Well, in the second movie, the main character goes into the further, and he is in the further part, the further like version of the house that they're in the first movie, and he knocks on the door.
Further being like the spiritual world. And
he knocks on the door to try to get entrance into the house. And then it cuts back to a scene from the first movie where they hear a knock at the door. Then he sees this entity on the other side, and he slams on the door. He pounds his fist against the door, and that was the pound in the first movie. So it's like you get all of these throwaway jump scares in the first movie, and now you get to see where those actually come from. And it explains stuff that happened in the first movie. And they continue to do that with the next two movies, which actually takes, the timeline itself actually goes the third movie, the fourth movie, then the first and the second. That's a chronological timeline in like our realm. But the way that they unfold it and tell it, it's absolutely awesome. By the end of the fourth movie, it becomes more about the medium than it does about really anyone else, even though the main characters from the first movie play very heavily in the roles of the rest of the movie. So, and it all ties together very beautifully.
Nice.
So, I would definitely say if you like a good, like, demon possession, like, ghost kind of horror, but still murder, mystery, like, it just contains so much. And I know that it was highly acclaimed, but I still feel like it's underrated as a horror movie goes.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I only saw the first one. I don't think I ever even bothered seeing the other movies.
I think I've seen two of them. The first two.
But I'm definitely more interested about it, knowing that they all kind of tie in together.
Oh yeah, when you get to the end of the fourth movie, it literally in the first movie, the boy's grandmother called Elise is her name, and is the medium's name. She calls her up, and within a day she's out there. At the end of the fourth movie is Elise getting that call and saying, "I will be there in a day. I'll be there the next day." And then that's the end of that movie, and you know that the very next thing that happens in her timeline is the first movie, and it ties right back in. And since she dies at the end of the first movie, you get a little bit more of her backstory in the third and the fourth, and it just ties the whole circle together. It's awesome. It's really good.
So you get your demon possession movies with the Insidious movies. You said Quarantine for found footage films. You like
Yeah,
those?
I love found footage.
And you were going to
Some
talk about a third.
So this movie is really underrated. It's one that you can find on Netflix. It's considered one of the B movies.
Yeah.
Because it was it's not one of the higher budget films, but
Dude, Sharknado was awesome. I agree.
Grave Encounters and the VHSs. So Grave Encounters and Grave Encounters 2, both found footage films about a ghost hunting like TV show group, like kind of like your ghost hunters, but they go into this abandoned asylum to look for ghosts, and they find them, and it's very well done, very terrifying. Like it really gets to you, the psychological damage that happens to these people while they're in this truly haunted place, and it's set up to be real. Like it's made to feel like this really actually did happen, like in reality, and then along with that, because I found these on Netflix, along with that, the VHS series. I think it's actually 3 movies now. The VHS movies. They are actually a compilation of found footage stories, all tightly knit into these hour-and-a-half long movies.
I saw the first one.
Oh, it's neat. So it's like found footage from different point of views.
Yeah. So, but what will happen is the very first one, it starts with like this, this guy breaking into this house, and he finds a setup of all these monitors, and he finds this videotape, so he puts it in, and you slowly watch. He's watching a couple different like videos happen, and as that progresses, things get weirder for him. But then you watch the film, so it's almost like something's occurring supernaturally to him because he's watching these films. But what's actually going on in these films? Oh, it's really trippy. There's a couple different things like some kids encountering being abducted by aliens. One where this film group is trying to get some inside knowledge on this cult, and the cult finally lets these people come in, but the reason why is because they're going to use them to usher in this demon that is the god of their cult, and this demon actually becomes born. And it's like, and so it's all these like really freaky things happen in these movies, so it's these little snippets, but it's so satisfying to watch, especially like on a spooky night. We got the lights out, maybe it's raining out, and it's cold, trick-or-treaters have already gone home, like, it really puts you on the edge of your seat. And you get to the end of like this 10-minute block of a video. Like each movie has like 4 to 6 little movies in it, and you find yourself on the edge of your seat, and you're like, oh, what the heck's gonna happen next? And then it goes back to that room with the guy sitting in there watching it, and now he's like acting weird, like all twitchy and stuff, and then it goes into the next film, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know if I want to keep watching. So it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It keeps everything dry. So Grave Encounters and VHS. I think Grave Encounters has 2 movies, both of them great, absolutely awesome.
I haven't seen those. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, I haven't even heard of those.
The found footage films usually end up kind of falling flat for me, although Quarantine I loved. But yeah, I look back to like the Blair Witch Project, which was like, the cornerstone of found footage films, and quite honestly, I walked out of there going, really? That's it? And then I saw another one just recently too that was a UFO found footage movie, and I can't remember the name of it.
Was it on Netflix?
Not Cloverfield?
No, not
Super 8?
Nope, it wasn't that.
Was it a Netflix one?
It was a Netflix one.
It was
about some kids that go missing in the desert.
And then they're augmented and stuff.
Yeah, and I was like, that was kind of weak, so...
Yeah, it was okay. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head.
But I'm going to have to check out the ones you mentioned. I did see VHS 1, so...
Yeah, it's trippy, right?
It was. It was a little creepy, for sure.
I watched one as a found footage film recently. It was like, I think it was called As It Is Above, or As It Is Below.
That was it. As Above.
As It Is Below. It was okay. It was like, a lot of that...
So good.
A lot of
so good.
The ending, I didn't care for the ending.
The one with in Paris.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
didn't either.
The ending, like, the way that they
I watched that last week
finally
as well.
explained what, like, the whole thing was, and, like, it was about, atonement and like regret.
Yeah.
But like there were a few moments like really early on in the movie. I think like the first 3/4 of that film. Like there were moments where like there was that scene when the cameraman was like trying to crawl through that space.
Oh, and
he
he's
got stuck.
freaking out, and you're freaking out. You're
I
like,
was
God,
getting
just get him out
legit
of there.
anxiety because I get like claustrophobia just watching that, and I was
Yeah.
like, I might have to turn this off because I was literally just getting this
No, you
visceral
feel it,
emotion of being
like,
stuck
you
in this
feel
place.
your skin's crawling, and it's like it's not even scary. The guy is just stuck in a cavern. And you're like,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Like I'm getting
I-
chills
yeah.
just thinking about it. That movie was just so great because it was based on real events and like real history.
Yeah. The whole thing with Nicholas. There was a scene though. I couldn't help myself. We got a buddy that comes here, and he does this. I don't know where he got it from. I'm pretty sure it's a pop culture thing, but he does this whole bit about Satan stole my shoes, and there's a scene where she's running back to put the Philosopher's Stone back where she got it from, and she's running through that like that aquifer where the water is coming through, and there's only enough room to like have her feet on both sides, and like all these bloody hands start like coming up, and she falls in.
That scene was so
And she
great.
falls in, and she's pulling herself out, and she's soaked in blood, and she's ripping these hands off, and she climbs out, and she's got no shoes on.
That scene was absolutely brilliant.
She
That's how I should be on the
crawls
side
out
of
of
the
there.
video
I know,
cameras.
yeah.
She crawls out of the water, and she no longer has shoes on.
Yeah.
Like the hands had stolen her shoes, but we know that this is like that's supposed to be the 9 levels of hell. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, we were supposed to invite
Satan
you
stole
into
her
this one.
shoes.
Yeah.
Satan stole his
Satan
shoes.
stole her
Satan stole her
shoes.
shoes.
I couldn't help myself. I was like, oh
Yeah.
jeez. I had to laugh at that moment, which kind of just broke me out of the whole scene because I couldn't help laughing at it. But yeah, I thought that was an excellent film. Just the ending was like, I was waiting for that man holder take her head around.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna end on like a little.
Or like they didn't really get out.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. But no, there's
He just kind of walked away because they all like, oh, I'm sorry for what I did,
yeah.
and that's enough.
The implications
Mhm.
though, like she and the guy get to go off, and then they get their life together, and they get to like help themselves through the trauma of going through that, and then but that one guy, all of his friends are dead.
Yeah.
Like, and you want to believe that maybe the 3 of them are gonna huff it out for the rest of their life. You know that's
That
not
guy
the
doesn't
case.
want to. He never wants to see those people
Yeah,
again. I get
like
it.
Right,
that
right.
guy is just
Yeah.
gonna live with his trauma
Yeah.
for maybe a couple more years, and before he tries to off himself or like puts himself into an asylum. Poor guy.
I'm glad we all watched that. I was just gonna say, like, it's like I saw it a couple days. Like, yeah, this was a
It's good.
pretty good
I
movie.
enjoyed
That was good.
I did
That was
enjoy
a good
it.
one.
I did enjoy it.
I absolutely love that movie. Like when I first heard of it, I'm like, I love movies that are based on real events and that are historical because it brings a little bit more of a creepy factor into it
Yeah.
because it's real.
So what parts are the real parts of it? I didn't know it was
Like,
based off real events.
It's based on the Paris catacombs.
Yeah, right. Okay, okay, so that actually exists, right?
And then the whole thing about Nicholas Flamel and
The Philosopher's Stone.
being the father, like all of that with
Yeah.
alchemy, all of that is true.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
true. Yeah.
The legends are true. Obviously,
Right.
we can't say whether or not the Philosopher's Stone really exists.
And-
Although I might know how to make one.
and
But
but apparently
it's yeah.
apparently the hell exists under Paris.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, right. City of Love.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense now.
Explains why the people are such. Anyway.
We love you, Paris.
But that wasn't going to be one of my favorites.
Okay.
So I'll bring up kind of like an indie horror movie that's, well, it's not really indie. It's called horror movie. It's an old one. It was directed by, I believe, Peter Jackson.
Really?
Oh.
I think Chris knows
Alive?
something. It's called Dead Alive.
Oh my gosh.
And it is, it at the time, I'm not sure if it still holds the record, but at the time it had held the record for most
Just
buckets of
gore.
fake blood.
Oh, fake blood
Every
everywhere.
use. This movie is just over the top, ridiculous in the gore and the horror. Like, it's not
Lawnmower.
gory in like. At one point, the guy just straps a lawnmower to himself and starts running himself through zombies. And it's not like horror in the way of like Saw, like where it's like real visceral. Like you can tell it's like fake gore.
Yes.
But it's so. At one point, like two of the zombies end up banging, and they have like a zombie baby. So like there's this little zombie baby that's like running around and like running amok.
This movie is just over the top
What?
crazy.
It's Peter Jackson, the guy that did friggin' Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah.
And I believe it was Adrian Brody that starred in it.
I believe so. Yeah.
So like, it's not like it has a look of like a B horror movie.
Yep.
But it's just so over the top with everything. Everything's just ridiculous. His mom like is a zombie at one point, and then at the end, I don't want to spoil it. You should really see it because it's really something to be held.
That's right.
But it's just really just gross and entertaining. It's not scary, and like you're not going to be scared by this movie in any way.
But it is a horror.
But it's a horror movie in the
horror
fact
movie.
that it's like zombies and blood and gore.
Right. Kind of like Zombieland was horror.
Kinda, but instead of having like a nice sentimental stories and like character development, it's just about this guy who is trying to protect his mom, and the zombie apocalypse breaks out around him.
Like a Shaun of the Dead.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like more along the lines of Shaun of the Dead.
Which there was some really scary moments in that.
Yeah. There were no scary movies.
Will he and his girl get back together? Like that was pretty.
No, there were
They
any
won't.
scary movies. This is not scary at all.
This is not scary.
No.
But it's a damn good. It's a damn good movie. Well, I'm not sure about that, but it's a movie that's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, good movie is
It's
I'm
slow.
not
It's
sure if it's
slow.
good movie, but it's worth watching at least once, though.
You should watch it. It's a spectacle.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's gore.
It's like
watching a live action gore concert.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
So I'll see.
I think the easy one, one of my all-time favorites, and it's also just out on Netflix this month, is The Shining. Stanley Kubrick's
Perfect.
Shining, Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
Iconic horror film.
Especially Shelley's,
Totally creepy movie.
Shelley's
Totally
horror
creepy.
is
Very
real.
psychological.
Oh,
Very,
yeah.
Very. It just gets to the point, and you're at the end of the movie. You're just like, what's going on? What's actually going on? But it's just a masterpiece.
What was
Little
interesting-
twin girls
There was
and creepy women in baths, like with lesions all. Oh, that scene right there just got me as a kid. I was
Each
like,
time I see that scene, I'm just like, I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready to just.
you see the lady at the time, like, no,
like don't
I
move
wasn't
that
ready."
shower curtain. No. Oh gosh.
There was this great documentary on Netflix as well. It's called Room 237.
Yes, great.
Ooh.
And it breaks down a lot of the stuff about The Shining, about what Kubrick did to make it truly psychologically terrifying. Because on the surface, it's just about these guys that go to a hotel and the guy goes crazy, murders his family.
Yeah.
It's about isolationism and, just like, this psychosis.
Yeah.
But there's more to it, right? Because like this movie has been such a cultural icon for decades that why is it like kind of stood the test of time when other horror movies haven't?
Mm-hmm.
They delve into a lot of the visual tricks that Kubrick does, the audio tricks, the stuff that he does with his photography and cinematography, the way he sets up shots. Like it's just really interesting to hear these. Basically, this movie's done by a bunch of different directors, writers, and they all tell different tales about the movie, stuff that they've noticed. And there's just so much that's packed into that movie. They deal with like impossible shots, like the camera creates this sense of disorientation, and then they put you in this room, and there's like a window in the back wall, but because of the layout and the way you're walking, that window shouldn't exist. That should just be like, that should just be another room on the other side.
Yep.
So he creates these impossible mind tricks, like, these mind tricks to throw you off your sense of reality, and it's just freaking brilliant, man.
Wow.
Absolutely. The story with that whole, not that I want to go down a rabbit hole about it, but was the whole reaction that Stephen King had to Stanley Kubrick's version, and how he hated it, and they clashed, and they have historically just not liked each other ever since.
Yeah.
And by watching that documentary, there were certain things in that, like where there's a scene where the family is heading to the Overlook Hotel, all right, and they pass by a Volkswagen.
And it's all just smashed off the side of the road.
Smashed off the side of the road.
It's a red Volkswagen.
It's a red Volkswagen. And in the book, it's a blue or a green Volkswagen, I believe, or something like that.
No, so in the book, so in the movie, they're driving a yellow car.
Okay.
And in the book, they're driving a red car.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
so basically what he's saying is like, hey, I took your vehicle and I just smashed it off the side of the road.
That's what it was.
This is mine now.
Kubrick was just saying, this is my movie. This is not your story anymore. And, you know, so there was like a lot of back and forth, and, you know, but it's funny because I grew up thinking like The Shining is a brilliant horror movie. And then you have the creator of the story basically giving a completely different view of it, saying how he hates the version, and he was all behind the TV version that came out later on that was more faithful to his story. Which wasn't as good, but it was more faithful to the story. Some of the other key differences was the Scatman Crothers plays the role of the caretaker who shares that link with
The Shining.
with the shine. He's got the shine
Danny, yeah.
with Danny, and in the book, he does not die.
No. And also,
He does not die.
he doesn't, in the book, Jack doesn't have an axe.
Right. It was like a
croquet mallets.
A croquet mallet. Yeah, that he hit that character with.
Yeah.
Right. So he hurt him, but he didn't kill him.
Because he actually, in the book, he comes back and he's the one that kind of gets the family out of there.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's kind of curious some of the changes that they made, but you're right. It's a great movie. It was scary, very effective. So good choice.
And it still holds up to this day. I watched it the other night and man, it still got me. That scene when Jack's coming at her and she's like, "Give me the bat, give me the bat," and she's like, you know, you can see the look on her face.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned like, you
she
know,
looks legit terrified.
Oh, she
like,
is.
Yeah.
oh.
they did. I guess they did that take
Oh,
like
yeah.
100 times
It
and
was,
like.
it was over 100 times. He
Yeah.
and I guess what it was he was saying that he wanted to get it just right, but I guess Kubrick was trying to push her.
Yeah, just trying to break her mentally.
He was trying to break her, and she did. I've heard so much about this, but like towards the end of the shooting, she actually brought him a fistful of her hair that had fallen out because of the mental stress. That
Oh
he
my
put her
gosh!
through.
Wow.
Like,
Talk about
she-
suffering for your art.
She suffered
Yeah.
for that. Like,
Wow.
and he wanted her broken because he wanted her fear to be very real.
Yeah.
That's what
He
we
got it.
got.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think she's
Incredibly effective.
ever thought of working with him ever again.
Yeah, probably not. That's. Wow. Any other picks?
Come back to me. Do that.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, I got one more. But I have to look it up because I don't remember what the title is.
All right.
Can we just talk about like the actual scary movies?
Scary movies.
Oh, you mean like the actual like the Freddy Kruegers and your
yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Streets?
Oh, I thought you meant like.
I thought
the
you meant
actual
literally scary
movies,
movies.
Like,
Yes.
like.
Oh, the movie Scary Movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are
But they're
great.
funny.
Those are funny.
Those
Those
are
are-
great. Number 3 was the best, hands
I-
down.
Yeah.
That's that scene where he's got the shovel and he's like, "Let's do this," and he cocks it and a shell comes out. A shotgun shell comes out. He cocks the shovel like a shotgun.
I just think those movies are so great because they mock the actual.
They do a
They
pretty
do a
good.
really
as
good
far
job
as far
spoofing.
as like
Yeah.
parody movies go,
Yes.
those are definitely some of the best.
Definitely. Do you want me to talk?
Yeah, you go.
Okay.
We'll still figure out what this thing's called.
So
Aliens.
as a kid, I grew up like loving campfire stories.
Okay.
Like to me, that was something to get scared about. And as I've grown to be an adult, what I've found is that monsters don't scare me, because they're not real. But people do scare, because the monsters really are the people around us, and yeah, people are real. so I tend to, I know you mentioned Halloween, and Halloween doesn't really do it for you, but for me, John Carpenter has made, I'm going to mention 2 John Carpenter films here, because to me he has made 2 of the most brilliantly scary horror movies of all time. The first one being Halloween, and what was so great about Halloween is that it was all atmosphere.
Yes.
The atmosphere was a character in this movie.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think it's also represented in the soundtrack. Like you're talking about a score that was like literally just 2 notes.
Yeah.
But it just set the tone
Absolutely.
of just dread.
Absolutely. I mean, you barely see the shape throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
And there's barely any hint of blood in the movie. So it wasn't a horror movie that went for like the whole like I'm gonna go for the gross out or
The uber violent, like the super realistic violence.
Exactly. It just basically relied on dread, as you said, and really had just like a cast of characters that were very real. They could have been your neighbors, totally.
Mhm.
Like there weren't any like overacted caricatures of like sometimes you see a lot of like the current day versions of these movies, you slasher film, you're gonna have like the over enhanced like jock, like who's like they just like exaggerations of real character
They're
archetypes.
caricatures, basically.
Yeah, they're caricatures of real archetypes, right? And in this, they were just regular people.
Yeah, like
and it was
teenagers.
very accessible. It's like that could have been you.
Yeah.
And I think that was what John Carpenter did so well with that film.
Agreed.
Now, on a completely different note, The Thing, his remake of a 1950s classic sci-fi movie. This is one of those instances where the remake of the movie is far better than the original. Far better than the original. And far different.
Yeah.
Basically, he went to his special effects department and said, have a blast, guys. All bets are off. Whatever you can get me, we're using. Just think about the wildest, most Lovecraftian, crazy stuff that you can think of, and we're going to put it in this movie. And my gosh, you couldn't have a more. I think isolation came up in tonight in this topic. Isolation is exactly what we have when you're sitting in a station in Antarctica, just surrounded by a handful of men, right, and a few dogs, and again that sense of dread, and not knowing who that your friend that you're sitting across the table from is who he says he is.
I think that was the most brilliant part about The Thing is that basically it was like a possession movie where this alien, I guess it was an alien entity, would basically possess somebody, and they would act just like they normally would. They would sound like they normally would.
It was like a doppelganger.
But then inside, they would just freaking eat you. Just eat you.
It would kill you. It killed its host.
Yeah.
And it would just basically take you over, all your personality.
That's
and everything.
right.
That's what it would do, and it would actually. They showed the process of they caught one that was like after it killed one of the characters and how it was remaking itself into the form of that character.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy, and just some of the visual effects in this, like I'm not one for the gross out, but I'll tell you this was so horrifying. Some of the imagery in this movie was so horrifying. I had nightmares as a kid for 2 weeks.
Yeah, this was back in the 80s, back before like computer effects. This was all practical. Like, these are all models and brilliant.
Just some crazy stuff. I mean, all I can think of is cheese pizza. Like
very Jabba the Hutt.
As like as a character's head just falls off to the floor, and then all of a sudden grows legs out of it, and then scampers off. And I was just like, some of the stuff you would see was just so mind-boggling, crazy that you're just like you're absolutely horrified, and your skin's crawling at this point, and you just like the last place you want to be is that station, like, and let me tell you, you got Kurt Russell in this movie, and you got Keith David, who I mean the cast in this movie, you got Wilford Brimley.
Oh, Wilford Brimley.
You got Wilford Brimley.
Diabetes.
All right. Like wonderful cast in this film, and just they just created a gem of a horror movie.
And I would say also one of the best endings in a horror movie as well.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like it wasn't end, it didn't end, right? He's like this thing's still out there and he's running.
And you have that scene. It's Keith David and you got Kurt Russell at the end, just kind of looking at each other
like
they're sharing a bottle of alcohol because they're like, you you might be killing me in another minute. I don't know. I don't know if you're who you say you are.
Yeah.
But you know what? The
We're
fire's gonna go out, and we're gonna freeze to death anyway. You know, like
both gonna die soon.
we're both gonna die. So let's drink up, type of thing. You know, like it's just it's a crazy movie. It's an awesome movie, and that's definitely one of my favorites of all time.
Nice.
And then I'll come back to another one, but I'd like to actually hear about your pick.
So it's called The Devil and Father Amorth, and it's directed by the same director who did The Exorcist.
Oh.
And
Great film.
Exorcist, obviously, that's
classic.
Yeah, that's up there with as far as great horror movies.
Yeah.
This movie is actually a documentary about a real life exorcism. So there is a branch of the Vatican Church that handles exorcisms. They have a father that specializes in exorcising demons from people, and he does quite a number of these. There's been hundreds of them documented over the years. And I think this goes back to the something that you touched on, that this to me is more scary because this is real. Like, this is something that happens in real life. This isn't Hollywood. This is something that has documented real life cases of possession by demons. So basically, the director hears about this father, and he goes to him and says, "Can I film one of these exorcisms for a documentary?" And reluctantly they say, "Yes, you can do it, but no production team. It's only you and just a handy cam, and that's it." So the movie's basically 40 minutes of just looks like home footage from a cam of this guy performing an exorcism on a woman. And this woman comes in, she seems totally normal. They put her in a chair, they start putting on the rosaries, they start saying the prayers over her, and she just changes, right? Starts speaking this guttural voice, speaking in tongues. There's like 3 pretty big dudes like trying to hold her down, and she's like throwing them off with like a small lady. She's just throwing them off with like this supernatural power. And all the while, this guy's he's saying his prayers and incantations over her, and this goes on for a while, and nothing really happens. But like, you don't see a demon like getting expelled from her body, or there's no real climactic moment of it, other than at the end of it, after the end of this 40 minutes, everyone's just exhausted, and the priest says, "Okay, she's clear." I don't know how to explain it other than, to me, that's scarier than any horror movie, because that is based on real life. Yeah. That this does happen. Yep. And that's terrifying.
I absolutely believe in demon possession. I believe that's a thing. I do believe in heaven and hell, so that is a very real thing to me.
So that to me, I mean, it's on Netflix. They afterwards they do interviews with like brain surgeons, psychologists.
Try to make sense of it.
Try to make sense, like, hey, do you think this is any type of like mental disorder? Do you think this is like any type of like brain disease? And everyone looks at it as like, no, this is nothing that I could, there's nothing in my field that could explain this. And then they have talks with like different priests and other members that are like high up in the church, and just like talk about possession and what it really is, what it is really. And it's insane to think that this is a real thing.
Yeah. Oh. What's the name of that movie?
The Devil and Father Amorth.
Okay. All right, I'm going to have to check that out. I'll add that one to my list. I am going to delve into 2 more movies for you that I think are great picks. I already know that Tyler's going to love one of them, and he's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not Aliens, but you're going to be like, I love that movie.
Predator.
So instead of holding him in anticipation, I'm just going to go right there. And I'm going to say The Fifth Kind. No, is it
Fourth Kind.
Fourth Kind.
Fourth Kind
That's it.
is awesome. Fourth Kind is fantastic.
Maybe let's just let Tyler talk about it.
The Fourth Kind is fantastic because what it is essentially is it's a retelling of an account of a woman named Abigail Tyler, I think.
Something like that.
Is either Elizabeth? I think it was Elizabeth Tyler.
Okay.
she essentially her
Played by
husband,
Mila Jovovich.
Yeah.
Jovovich. Sorry.
So they actually they have these filmed scenes that they'll actually in the movie play alongside actual footage of what's going on. So they'll have the reenactment, and then they'll have the actual footage of what's going on.
Oh.
And what happens is this woman, it's her and her.
When you say actual footage, you mean like real life footage?
So
actual
they're
footage.
saying this is a dramatization of something that actually happened, and so at key points in the movie they will have, for instance, there are scenes of regression therapy being given to people who have had these experiences. It takes place in Alaska, a very remote part of Alaska that can only be accessed by by planes, stuff like that. That's how you have to get there.
I think there's one road that can go in there during like a
The
small
summer
period of the summer season, but other than that, the only way to get in there is by plane.
So
it's a small remote town.
So
and something that's important to note about this town that is in real life, it has, like, compared to other cities where there are a lot of encounters with aliens, like seeing UFOs and stuff, all of these accounts that people have of with aliens, Nome is the highest by almost like 100%. So I think their average like annual sightings for like alien encounters is like over 2,000.
Yep.
Wow.
It's
So
absolutely ridiculous.
So the movie starts off basically with Mila Jovovich plays the doctor. She's basically a psychologist, and she's helping to treat people in her community. And some of the people that are coming to her are basically sharing a story that's very similar to what other people's experiences are. And so
she is also had. Has had. Thank you.
Have.
Has had.
And so a lot of the
Who's calling the store this hour?
So basically, okay, back in.
Yeah.
So basically, some of these therapy sessions, you're seeing basically the movie version, and then side by side, you're seeing an actual video of the portrayal. Or actually, actual video that they portray.
It'll show like
yeah, exactly.
It'll show like Dr. Tyler like sitting there, and they'll ask her a question, and she'll answer it, and the audio will play over the reenacted audio. So both the I can't remember pronounce her name, and they say the same pretty much at the same time. So it shows the reenactments side by side.
Okay, so they're trying to like bang home the point that like this is based off of true events.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so what ends up happening is she's dealing with the death of her husband, and they can't figure out exactly how it happened. She recalls that it was a home invasion and he had been stabbed. She starts having these weird experiences, and she starts to believe that maybe her recollection of what had happened isn't true. And so she gets a little bit of this regressive hypnosis from another psychologist friend of hers that's trying to help her discover, help her deal with this. And what she's uncovering is that something weird is happening.
Yes.
And like the first time you get an experience with the aliens is when she falls asleep while she's recording something on her recorder. And so they play back what she recorded, but the playback is not a reenactment. The playback is the actual recording on that recorder, where you hear her screaming for her life. Now, she is asleep during this. You hear her screaming for her life, and then at the end of the audio, you hear this sound. And it's this really broken language, and they're able to determine that what this language is ancient Sumerian, a completely dead language that no one should be able to speak.
Right.
And then from there, the movie kind of picks up, where now her little girl is starting to become affected by this, and she starts having more encounters with these aliens, and every time she sees them, it's always at 3:33 in the morning. She looks over in her window, and it's kind of like foggy and stuff, and this is all reenacted because this was not filmed in reality, but this is all her account. And she would constantly see these snowy white owls around this time, and this is something that is recurring with many people. They're constantly seeing these
They always
snowy
say
white owls in their windows. But what that owl is their brains not being able to comprehend the image of this alien being standing before them, and so it replaces that in their memory with these owls so that they can deal with it. And it gets crazier.
And the movie's terrifying in that sense.
What's it called?
And it's extremely effective. The Fourth Kind.
Fourth Kind.
Interesting.
Yes, definitely. We don't want to go all the way to the end. And
No, I'm gonna watch this.
Yeah.
This is a great movie.
It is scary, and the
movie.
thing is there are some scenes that you're like, if you watched it and it was just a reenactment, you'd be like, okay, like that's a bit of an exaggeration. But then you see the actual footage.
When you see that they're splitting the screen and they're showing, like, this is what we're actually portraying here.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like that's actual, like,
I
that's
would definitely say, like, if you can't handle a good scare flick, I would say maybe don't watch it with the lights off. At least have some sort of light source on. Definitely cover your windows.
My wife will not watch this movie.
Turn the volume to a reasonable level because it will get loud.
Yeah.
And when it gets loud, you will feel it in your entire body.
Yeah.
It is such a powerful film.
Yes.
It just sounds like a really different take on a horror film, and I like that. It just from like just you explaining it, it makes me want to watch it because it sounds so good.
I absolutely would.
Well, it's what's effective about it is the fact that what they're showing you is, really what actually happens. Like it's you get the split screen, so you're seeing you're seeing the enactment, but you're seeing the reality, and that just makes the movie so much more effective.
You get this recording where she's actually like yelling because I don't want to give it away, but she's yelling at this entity.
Yeah.
And it responds.
Yeah.
And they're having a kind of yelling match, and there's this one moment where they're actually trying to kind of they have this broken captioning. Because there are only certain words that can actually be made out because we only have a very minor understanding of how the Sumerian language was built. But there's this one scene that is just so powerful, this entity says. Yeah. And it's just like...
So is it aliens or is it demons?
Well, so that's up to you to decide, I think.
And they make it
it's
very
up to you to
unclear
decide.
because there is definitely a religious undertone that you get from the alien species, from this alien entity, rather, that comes there, which, again, this is all actual recording. This is all... You
guys got to watch this. If you guys are, fans of really good, like, intense movies, got to see this one. It really is... It's up there. All right. I'm going to switch gears, and the last movie that I wanted to bring to your attention is kind of an understated movie. Director Brad Anderson, who did movies called Next Stop Wonderland. He also did a movie called The Mechanist.
Yep.
With Christian Bale.
Oh, is that the one where he was super skinny?
Yeah.
Yep. He did a movie that he shot on site here in Massachusetts at the Danvers State Mental Hospital. Which has long since been closed. It's called Session 9. And this is another one of those movies where the atmosphere is king. The story starts off with a town basically putting it out to bid to do a hazmat cleanup of the Danvers State Mental Hospital, which has been an unoccupied building for decades. It was closed down a long time ago. And it was actually filmed right on site there. This building, when they do the overhead shots of this building, it is a frightening looking building. All right, it looks like it's got bat wings. All right, it's a scary place, and it being abandoned and basically decrepit.
Also an old mental institution.
And an old mental institution with some of the stuff that's still inside. Like you still see like the overturned chairs or the
feces smeared on the walls.
Well, like whatever it is. It just that in and of itself it provides a great groundwork for an awesome horror picture, right?
Yeah.
So, what's his name? David Caruso is in this movie. All right. From what was it, CSI? Is that?
Okay.
Yeah. He's in this movie. There's a couple other guys that you'll recognize. One guy actually who went on to become a pretty big actor for a while. Actually, my memory is failing me. Did anyone see Poseidon, the movie with Kurt Russell where the rogue wave hits the cruise liner?
I know what it is.
Yeah, it was a fun movie. It was a good movie.
Cruise liner.
Yeah, capsizes.
Yeah.
He was in some movie with Reese Witherspoon too, like a kind of a rom-com. Not a rom-com. This is a romance movie.
I do like a good Reese Witherspoon movie. She's a good actress.
But anyway, I digress. So basically, this hazmat team, it's a small company. They're kind of like they're a little bit like they're really in need of this job. All right, so they're going in, and they go really low on the bid, and they also tell the town that we can do this job in a very short amount of time, because they're just desperate to get this job. They're desperate to get the contract. So the owner of the company is under stress. Yep. The owner's son is not the owner's son. I'm sorry. The owner's nephew is working for them. You've got David Caruso's character. David Caruso's character is basically a friend of the owner. There's a couple other guys too, and they're all kind of like they all have their own thing going. There's a little bit of clashing going on with a couple of the characters, build some tension type of thing, and they go in there and they start working on this on their job, right? Removing asbestos and all this other stuff. I mean, and one of the characters ends up coming across a box of tapes, recordings of a therapy session with one of the old patients. And so instead of doing it begins with like him just going on his lunch breaks, and then going and listening to these tapes. And the numbers. The tapes are labeled Session 1, Session 2, Session 3, all the way through to where the movie gets its name, Session 9, right? And over the course of the movie, he's listening to these things, and you come to realize that they're interviews with the same patient, and this patient has multiple personalities. Depending on the day, the doctor doesn't know who he's talking to. Like, who are you today? And then that person, says, "Oh, I'm Bobby," and it's a woman, but she'll say, "I'm Bobby," and stuff like that. And she speaks with different voices, and it lays kind of the groundwork of a very creepy type of thing, And again, this is all atmosphere, but things start getting more and more and more stressful, and people are starting to crack on the job, and the movie just does one of those like slow descents. And by the end of the movie, it's a fantastic. I'm not going to blow anything. I'm not going to give it away, but I will say it is a very, very effective movie, and definitely one you guys should watch. And it's not one of those movies where you like the nature of it. You're like, oh, was it supernatural? Was it, what was it? You don't really know the nature of what was going on. I think it's left open to interpretation. Yeah. And I kind of like those movies.
Oh, absolutely. I think the best horror movies are the ones that don't try to explain themselves, right? Because that makes them more terrifying if you don't know.
That's right. That's right. But, for me to tell you any more about the movie would be to give away significant plot hooks that I just don't want to do. But it's a movie that every horror movie aficionado should watch this movie. And it's not one of those movies that... It's not one of those like gross out movies. Like there's nothing really horrible, like, that's like gut wrenching, like, I'm gonna throw up after seeing that. It's nothing like that, like some of these like Saw movies, where they just kind of go for the
It's not really scary,
the shock.
It's just suspenseful.
This is just all suspense, 100% suspense, and just sheer terror from atmosphere. So it's cool.
I think the best horror movies are built on suspense.
Yes,
Agreed.
absolutely.
What about yours?
Yeah.
My favorite horror movies?
Yeah, let's go. Let's give some
can you hear
Halloween
you?
recommendations.
They can hear me.
Okay, you can hear you, so they
I
can hear you.
I can hear me.
Okay. Yeah.
I was thinking of like having this like podcast style so you can see me.
Yeah, we should have had one camera on you, like producer style.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But maybe
next time.
Maybe next time we do that. That would be good.
Time. I haven't seen much horror movies because
She doesn't watch movies.
I don't really watch movies that often because I'm busy all the time. But when I really I hunker down and I watch As Above, So Below because that was such a great movie. I heard so much about it, and I would sit down and watch it. I'm like, I'm not one for jump or get in your face type movies. But but As Above, So Below is just so great. I loved it because it was so. It was just different. It took on the role of like a journalist looking for something or something like that. But I know this is so cliche, but I love the new It movie.
Oh yeah.
I thought
it was very effective. Yeah.
Other it being scary, I thought it was funny. I thought it was very humorous at times.
I thought the kid that played Richie, the kid from Stranger Things,
yes.
all the dick jokes.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yes. In some of in the book, he was even more even more grittier in the book than he was in in the movie. He would say slurs. He would be racist sometimes.
Yeah, one of his characters was that really racist Irish cop.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I like the moments where I love gore, and one of the moments was he was waving the arm, and I burst out laughing when I saw that. I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome. But I love the fact that they hid it from the kids, so the kids would get that fear factor. Yep. And
that's what he fed off of.
Yeah, exactly.
It was fear.
Yeah, it was the seasoning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes me can't wait for the chapter 2.
Oh, next year it comes out, I believe.
Yeah, next year, and I already saw the casting for it, and it's perfect.
Yep.
But other than
Jessica
that,
Chastain's in it, and who else?
I didn't hear the casting names for it. I will say I've really enjoyed the latest iteration of it. I thought it was in a lot of ways better than the made-for-TV movie from back in the 80s.
Yeah.
The only qualm I had with the movie was the way they defeated it, and I think what really got me was that some of the stuff that they left out, like the connection to silver, the mysticism and the magic of silver, the religious implications of what silver means, all that. Silver the bike that Billy rides and overcomes his stuttering.
That's right.
I never made that connection.
Between the silvers?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. My 9th grade English teacher was big into religious imagery in books, and he's the one that pointed that out and how silver was the payment that Judas received for giving up Jesus, and that's where a lot of the magic of silver comes from.
Yep.
So the fact that they didn't even bring that in, they didn't bring in the slingshot, and the whole thing with Bev being the one to wield it.
Yep.
I think I had a problem with them leaving those parts out, but I thought all the parts that they left out, like how they got out of the sewer and Bev having an orgy with all the guys, that was probably best left.
I agree.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Yep.
But on the whole, I thought it was it was totally creepy. You need Bill Skarsgård as it when he's doing that crazy dance.
He did such a good job.
Yeah.
He did such a good job, like how he can configure his face and look at like that, and it was just great.
I still think that we're going to find out with the Castle Rock TV show that his character has some relation to the Pennywise character.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my gosh.
I want to see more of
Is
it.
Bill Skarsgård in it?
Yeah.
Bill Skarsgård.
Yes, he is.
Good part name.
Did you finally finish it? No?
I haven't watched any more episodes. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Castle Rock was good. It was good. But anyway, that's it. That's all we have for you this time around. So you better get cracking on your Halloween movie watching.
I got a lot to catch up on.
Yeah.
I got a few more suggestions, but not for you guys. Sorry. We gotta wrap this.
But until next time, folks, we appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you again real soon, all right?
Ha 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 ha!